The desolate plain stretched endlessly under a burnt-orange sky, the twin suns of the planet Keltrax casting long shadows across the alien terrain. Towering spires of jagged black rock jutted from the ground like the teeth of some ancient predator, a fitting backdrop for the impending clash. The air was thick with tension, the kind that made every breath feel heavy, every movement deliberate. At the center of the battlefield stood the towering figure of General Zorthan Thal, a 7-foot-tall Krenoran warrior encased in sleek, segmented armor that shimmered like liquid obsidian. His imposing form was matched by the serrated blade resting at his side, a weapon said to have cleaved entire squadrons in two during the siege of Exoria. Behind him, rows of his soldiers, hulking brutes with hardened carapaces and glowing, slit-pupil eyes, stood at attention, their guttural snarls filling the air. General Thal's voice boomed across the plain, amplified by the advanced tech embedded in his armor. "Humans, you are weak. You cower behind your walls, hiding from the inevitability of your extinction. Face us with your entire army, or surrender your world and admit your inferiority." Across the battlefield, a lone human figure stepped forward, clad not in armor but a simple, reinforced exosuit. Captain Elias Carter was unassuming by Krenoran standards, barely 6 feet tall, lean rather than muscular, with a sharp jawline and piercing gray eyes. He carried no visible weapons, only a small device attached to his wrist. The sight of him elicited a wave of mocking laughter from the Krenoran ranks. Thal sneered, his mandibles clicking in contempt. "This is your response, humans? One soldier? Do you think to insult me, or are you merely this desperate?" From a nearby ridge, the human command team observed the scene through binoculars and holographic displays. Commander Lena Reyes, a no-nonsense strategist with decades of experience, clenched her fists. What the hell is Carter doing? He's supposed to wait for the signal. Beside her, Dr. Adrian Voss, the chief scientist behind the mission's experimental tech, smirked. "Let him go. This is part of the plan." Reyes shot him a glare. "Plan?" "The plan was to negotiate for time while we brought reinforcements, not to send one man to face an entire army." "He's not just one man," Voss said cryptically, his voice tinged with excitement. "He's the contingency." On the battlefield, Elias Carter showed no signs of hesitation. He tapped the wrist device, and a holographic projection sprang to life, displaying the Earth Interstellar Treaty emblem. His voice was calm but carried a steely edge. "General Thal, under intergalactic law, humanity has every right to defend its territories from unprovoked aggression. This isn't war, it's a challenge. One-on-one. You win, Earth falls. I win, you leave and never return." Thal's laughter was guttural and unrestrained, echoing across the plains. "You amuse me, human. Do you think your frail body can withstand the might of a Krenoran warrior?" Elias smirked. "I think you'll be surprised. The unusual stakes." Thal turned to his second-in-command, a brutish figure with crimson-tinted scales and an arsenal of weapons strapped to his back. "This is beneath me. Let one of the bloodrunners handle him." "No!" Elias's voice cut through the murmurings. "The terms are clear, a duel between champions. Or are you afraid to fight me yourself?" A hush fell over the Krenoran ranks. Thal's eyes narrowed, the insult striking deeper than Elias could have hoped. Among the Krenorans, fear was the ultimate disgrace, and to imply that their leader harbored such a weakness was a grave provocation. Thal stepped forward, his blade unsheathing with a metallic screech. "Very well, human. If you wish for a swift death, I shall oblige." From the ridge, Reyes muttered under her breath, "This is insane." "It's brilliant," Voss replied. "Just watch." First impressions. Thal lunged, his blade cutting through the air with a force that sent shockwaves rippling across the ground. Elias dodged with a speed and precision that seemed almost unnatural, his movements fluid and calculated. The Krenoran general roared in frustration, striking again and again, each swing meeting empty air as Elias danced around him. "Stand still, coward!" Thal bellowed. Elias's smirk widened. "You're not as fast as I thought you'd be." The Krenoran soldiers watching the duel began to grow restless, their jeers turning into murmurs of confusion. How could a single human, unarmed and outmatched, evade their general so effortlessly? Thal's frustration grew. He unleashed a flurry of strikes, his blade moving faster than the human eye could follow. But Elias wasn't just evading, he was studying. Every move Thal made was being recorded and analyzed by the advanced neural interface embedded in Elias's suit. Patterns emerged, weaknesses revealed themselves, and Elias began to counter. The first blow. With a sudden burst of speed, Elias closed the distance between them. He ducked under Thal's sweeping strike, his wrist device emitting a pulse of energy that struck the Krenoran's armor. Thal stumbled back, momentarily stunned. The Krenoran ranks erupted in shock. No human had ever landed a blow on their general. Care to reconsider? Elias asked, his tone almost teasing. Thal snarled, regaining his footing. You've only delayed your death, human. But Elias wasn't done. He tapped his wrist device again, and a shimmering field of energy enveloped him. The exosuit, previously unassuming, transformed. Plates of nanotech armor materialized over his body, each piece locking into place with mechanical precision. In seconds, Elias stood fully armored, a glowing blade extending from his right arm. From the ridge, Voss clapped his hands in delight. The EXO protocol is live. Reyes stared in disbelief. That wasn't in the brief. Would you have approved it if it was? Voss asked, grinning. A new challenger. Elias's transformation sent a ripple of unease through the Krenoran ranks. Thal, however, was unfazed. If anything, the challenge only seemed to invigorate him. Impressive, Thal admitted, his voice dripping with sarcasm. But armor won't save you from what's coming. Thal activated his own suit, sections of his armor expanding and bristling with weapons. The battlefield seemed to darken as the two figures faced off, the air between them charged with anticipation. For the first time, Elias felt the weight of the moment. This wasn't just a duel. It was a fight for humanity's survival, a test of whether one soldier could hold the line against a force that sought to crush an entire species. The battle was far from over, but one thing was certain, Elias Carter was no ordinary soldier, and the Krenorans were about to find out just how wrong they were about humanity. As the suns dipped lower in the sky, the battlefield was set for a clash that would change the galaxy forever. The battlefield was a storm of anticipation, the twin suns casting long, shifting shadows over the two opponents as they squared off. General Thal's dark, hulking form bristled with weapons, his serrated blade glowing faintly with energy. Across from him, Elias Carter stood calm and resolute, his newly activated nanotech armor glinting under the burnt orange sky. The Krenoran soldiers, usually confident and rowdy, stood in uneasy silence. This was not the duel they had expected. Humanity's lone soldier had not only survived but now presented a real challenge to their seemingly invincible general. Thal broke the silence, his voice reverberating across the plain. You've delayed your death long enough, human. Now I'll end this farce. Elias tilted his head, a smirk tugging at his lips. You keep saying that, yet here I am. The battle intensifies. Thal surged forward, moving faster than a being of his size should have been able to. His blade came down with a thunderous crack, the ground beneath Elias trembling as the blow narrowly missed. Elias sidestepped and countered, his energy blade humming as it slashed through the air. Their weapons collided, sending sparks flying in all directions. The sheer force of the impact sent Elias skidding backward, his boots digging into the dusty ground. Thal was relentless, his strikes coming faster, each more precise than the last. Elias's neural interface worked overtime, analyzing Thal's movements, predicting patterns, and adjusting his reflexes. He dodged another swing, ducked under a spinning kick, and struck back, his blade slicing through a segment of Thal's armor. The Krenoran general roared in fury, his mandibles flaring. You think you can match me? I've crushed armies with less effort than this. Elias didn't respond. He didn't need to. His actions spoke louder than words. Creative solutions. Back on the ridge, Commander Lena Reyes and Dr. Adrian Voss monitored the fight through holographic displays. Reyes paced anxiously, her gaze flicking between the battle and the growing blips on their radar. More Krenoran reinforcements were arriving, their ships descending through the atmosphere like ominous shadows. "Carter can't hold them off forever," Reyes muttered. "We need a backup plan." Voss shook his head, his eyes glued to the display. "No, he doesn't need to win outright. He just needs to outlast him." "Outlast him?" Reyes snapped. "Thal's an augmented killing machine. Carter's armor won't hold up indefinitely." Voss tapped on his datapad, pulling up a schematic of Elias's suit. "That's where you're wrong. The EXO protocol isn't just armor. It's adaptive. Every time Carter engages, it learns. And right now, it's learning how to beat Thal." Reyes stopped pacing, her eyes narrowing. "And if it fails?" Voss hesitated. "It won't. The Krenoran trap." Meanwhile, on the battlefield, Thal's frustration grew. His strikes, though powerful, were increasingly being parried or avoided. Elias was no longer merely reacting, he was pressing the attack. His blade found weak points in Thal's armor, carving shallow gashes that hissed and smoked. But Thal was no fool. He switched tactics, retreating slightly and activating a device on his forearm. The ground beneath Elias erupted as hidden mines detonated, throwing him off balance and sending him sprawling. The Krenoran soldiers erupted into cheers, their confidence returning as they watched Elias struggle to his feet. Thal advanced slowly, savoring the moment. "You humans are nothing but vermin," Thal sneered. "You fight with tricks because you lack the strength to face us head-on." Elias wiped blood from his lip, his helmet retracting briefly. "If you think humans don't know how to fight dirty, you're in for a surprise. Humanity fights back." From his wrist device, Elias activated a new function of the EXO suit. Small drones detached from his armor, whirring into the air around him. They emitted a high-pitched frequency that disrupted Thal's visor, momentarily blinding him. Elias didn't waste the opportunity. He charged forward, his blade igniting in a burst of energy. The impact of his strike sent Thal reeling, his armor sparking and smoking. Before Thal could recover, Elias followed up with a series of rapid blows, each one more precise than the last. The Krenoran soldiers fell silent once more, their confidence shaken as their seemingly invincible general was driven to his knees. On the ridge, Reyes allowed herself a small smile. "He's turning the tide." "Not yet," Voss said, his voice tense. "Thal still has his ace. Thal's secret weapon." As Elias prepared to deliver another strike, Thal roared, unleashing a shockwave that sent the human flying backward. The Krenoran general rose to his feet, his mandibles spread wide in a fearsome grin. "You've impressed me, human," Thal admitted, his voice tinged with grudging respect. "But I've held back long enough." Thal activated a device on his chest, and his armor began to shift. Plates expanded and reconfigured, revealing rows of mounted weapons and pulsating energy conduits. His blade crackled with newfound power, its edge glowing an intense red. Elias stood, his suit compensating for the damage he'd taken. "Oh, great. He has a second form." "Of course, he does." The Krenoran general charged, faster and deadlier than before. Elias barely managed to dodge, the shockwave from Thal's strike sending him tumbling. Each attack was now accompanied by bursts of energy, explosions that threatened to overwhelm the EXO suit's defenses. New complications. Back on the ridge, Reyes's comm crackled to life. "Commander, the reinforcements are mobilizing. We're detecting heavy weapons platforms and air support." Reyes cursed. "We can't let them interfere. Get the orbital cannons online and prepare for bombardment." Voss frowned. "That could hit Carter too." Reyes met his gaze. "If we don't act now, Thal's army will overwhelm us, and it won't matter if Carter wins." Voss hesitated but nodded. "I'll recalibrate the targeting. Just give me a few minutes." A desperate move. On the battlefield, Elias was on the defensive. Thal's new form was overwhelming, his attacks faster and more devastating. Each clash of their blades sent shockwaves rippling through the air, and Elias's armor was beginning to falter. "You can't win, human!" Thal roared, his voice amplified by his enhanced armor. "Your species is weak. Your resistance is meaningless." Elias gritted his teeth, his mind racing. He needed to change the game, to find a way to turn Thal's power against him. Then he noticed it, the faint hum of the energy conduits in Thal's armor. They pulsed rhythmically, a telltale sign of a centralized power source. "Let's see how you like losing your toys," Elias muttered. He activated the exosuit's grappling system, firing a cable that latched onto Thal's chest plate. Using the suit's enhanced strength, Elias pulled himself forward, avoiding Thal's blade by inches. He planted an energy charge directly onto the power source and launched himself backward. Thal looked down, his mandibles clicking in confusion. "What is this?" Elias smirked. "Your weakness." The charge detonated, sending a shockwave that engulfed Thal in a burst of light and smoke. The stakes rise. When the dust settled, Thal remained standing, his armor damaged but intact. He growled, his eyes glowing with rage. "You've only delayed the inevitable." But Elias wasn't deterred. He adjusted his stance, ready for the next round. Behind him, the human orbital cannons lit up the sky, their beams targeting the advancing Krenoran reinforcements. The battle was far from over, but Elias Carter had proven one thing: humanity was far from finished. The battlefield was a cauldron of chaos, the sky streaked with fire as human orbital cannons rained destruction upon the advancing Krenoran reinforcements. Explosions rocked the ground, throwing debris into the air and scattering the alien soldiers who had once marched with unshakable confidence. But amidst the storm of violence, the duel between Elias Carter and General Thal remained the eye of the storm, a clash of wills that would determine the fate of Earth. Thal's imposing form, battered but unyielding, loomed over the battlefield like a nightmare given shape. His augmented armor hissed and sparked where Elias's strikes had found their mark, but the Krenoran general showed no signs of weakness. Instead, he seemed more dangerous than ever, his glowing blade pulsing with lethal energy. "You've pushed me farther than any foe, human," Thal growled, his voice resonating with grudging respect. "But now, I will show you the true might of a Krenoran warrior." Elias, his own armor scorched and dented, activated his suit's energy dampeners, the shimmering field protecting him as Thal's blade came down in a massive overhead swing. Sparks flew as the strike connected, the ground beneath Elias cracking from the force. He held his stance, his gritted teeth visible through the fractured visor of his helmet. "I've already seen what you've got," Elias replied, his voice steady despite the strain. "And it's not enough. The duel reaches new heights." Thal roared, the sound a guttural mix of rage and determination, and unleashed a barrage of attacks. His blade became a blur of motion, striking from every angle with deadly precision. Elias relied on his neural interface to keep up, his suit's predictive algorithms allowing him to dodge and parry with split-second timing. The battlefield around them seemed to blur as their duel intensified, the sheer speed and ferocity of their movements surpassing what any observer could follow. Elias ducked under a sweeping strike and countered with a precision blow to Thal's exposed flank, his energy blade slicing into the alien's armor. Thal staggered but recovered quickly, retaliating with a backhanded swing that sent Elias skidding across the ground. "You fight well," Thal admitted, his mandibles flaring. "But skill will not save you. Power is all that matters." "Maybe for you," Elias shot back, wiping blood from the corner of his mouth. "But humans are more than brute strength. We fight smart." Thal sneered. "Smart? Let's see how far your intelligence gets you when your body gives out." A desperate stand. On the ridge overlooking the battle, Commander Reyes and Dr. Voss worked frantically to coordinate Earth's defenses. The orbital cannons were keeping the Krenoran reinforcements at bay, but the enemy's numbers were growing, and several Krenoran ships had begun to target the cannons themselves. "They're adapting," Reyes muttered, her eyes fixed on the holographic battlefield map. We won't be able to hold them off much longer. Voss nodded grimly, his fingers flying across his datapad. We need more time. If Carter can neutralize Thal, the Krenorans might lose their morale. And if he can't? Reyes asked, her voice sharp. Voss hesitated. Then we'll need to evacuate. Reyes scowled. We're not running. Not this time. Thal's ultimate form. Back on the battlefield, Thal activated a hidden mechanism within his armor. Plates shifted and expanded, revealing an intricate lattice of pulsating energy conduits that coursed with a dangerous, red glow. His blade grew in size, crackling with an unstable energy that seemed to warp the air around it. You've forced my hand, human, Thal said, his voice reverberating like a storm. This is the power of a true warrior. Elias braced himself as Thal charged, the Krenorans' movements now faster and more unpredictable. His suit's predictive algorithms struggled to keep up, and Elias found himself on the defensive, narrowly avoiding blows that could have ended the fight in an instant. Thal's strikes grew more brutal, each one sending shockwaves that rattled Elias's armor and threatened to overwhelm his defenses. The human soldier gritted his teeth, his mind racing for a solution. He needed to turn the tide, and fast. Creativity in the face of defeat. Elias activated the exosuit's auxiliary systems, unleashing a swarm of micro-drones that whirred around Thal, disrupting his movements and obscuring his vision. The Krenoran general roared in frustration, swiping at the drones with his massive blade. Taking advantage of the distraction, Elias darted forward, his energy blade igniting with a burst of power as he aimed for Thal's exposed energy conduits. The strike landed, sending a surge of energy coursing through Thal's armor. The Krenoran staggered, smoke rising from his wounds, but he refused to fall. Instead, he retaliated with a devastating blow that shattered Elias's energy shield and sent him crashing to the ground. For a moment, the battlefield went silent. The Krenoran soldiers cheered, their confidence reignited as their general stood victorious. But Elias wasn't finished. The turning point. Lying on the ground, Elias activated the final function of his exosuit, the overdrive protocol. His armor began to glow, the nanotech plating reconfiguring itself into a sleeker, more powerful form. Energy surged through him, enhancing his strength and speed to their limits. Thal's eyes narrowed. What trickery is this? Elias rose to his feet, his movements fluid and deliberate. It's not trickery, he said, his voice amplified by the suit. It's humanity at its best. The two warriors charged at each other, their blades colliding in an explosion of light and sound. This time, Elias didn't hold back. He matched Thal blow for blow, his enhanced speed and precision allowing him to exploit every opening in the Krenorans' defenses. The tide of the duel shifted. Thal's strikes grew slower, his armor showing more signs of damage. Elias pressed the attack, his blade finding purchase in the weak points of Thal's augmented form. A climactic moment. With a final, decisive strike, Elias's energy blade pierced through Thal's chest plate, striking the core of his power conduits. The Krenoran general froze, his blade falling from his grasp as a cascade of sparks and smoke erupted from his armor. Elias stepped back, breathing heavily as Thal dropped to his knees. The battlefield fell silent once more, the Krenoran soldiers staring in disbelief as their leader was brought low. You fought well, Thal admitted, his voice strained. Perhaps. I underestimated your kind. Elias deactivated his blade, his expression hard. You made a mistake thinking we were weak. Humanity doesn't break. We adapt. With that, Thal slumped forward, his armor collapsing around him. The Krenoran soldiers hesitated, their morale shattered by the sight of their fallen general. The aftermath of victory. On the ridge, Reyes and Voss watched as the Krenoran forces began to retreat, their confidence broken. The orbital cannons ceased fire, the battlefield finally quiet. Reyes exhaled, a mixture of relief and disbelief washing over her. He did it. Voss smiled. I told you. Carter's not just a soldier. He's humanity's answer to anything the galaxy can throw at us. As Elias stood amidst the wreckage, the twin suns casting long shadows over the battlefield, he knew the fight wasn't just for Earth. It was a message to the galaxy: humanity was here to stay, and no challenge was too great. But the war was far from over, and Elias Carter was ready for whatever came next. The battlefield, once alive with the clash of weapons and the roar of alien war cries, was now eerily silent. The towering form of General Thal lay crumpled at the center of the plains, his once imposing armor cracked and lifeless. Around him, the Krenoran forces stood frozen, their confidence shattered as they beheld the lone human soldier who had defeated their greatest champion. Elias Carter, his suit battered but still glowing faintly with energy, stood tall amidst the ruins. His breathing was heavy, but his posture remained resolute. The burnt-orange sky above seemed to shift, as if the twin suns themselves bore witness to the end of this pivotal battle. "Fall back," one of the Krenoran captains finally shouted, breaking the tense silence. The alien forces began to retreat, their ranks unraveling as the weight of their defeat sunk in. It was a sight no one on the ridge would have believed possible just hours earlier. Humanity's victory. On the ridge, Commander Reyes lowered her binoculars, her expression a mix of relief and amazement. "He actually did it," she said softly, her voice carrying an edge of disbelief. Dr. Voss grinned, his excitement barely contained. "I told you the EXO protocol would work. Carter's adaptability is what makes it special, and what makes us special." Reyes shot him a look but couldn't suppress a small smile. "Let's get down there. I want to hear it from Carter himself." The human command team descended to the battlefield, weaving through the debris and the bodies of fallen soldiers. When they reached Elias, he was still standing, surveying the retreating Krenoran forces with a grim expression. "Carter," Reyes called out. "Are you in one piece?" Elias turned to face her, a weary smirk tugging at his lips. "Mostly. You know, for a guy who just fought an alien general the size of a cargo hauler." Reyes chuckled, shaking her head. "You're insane, Carter. But you pulled it off." Thal's final words. As the humans gathered, a sound drew their attention. General Thal, his breathing labored and his body slumped against a jagged rock, raised a hand weakly. Elias approached cautiously, his blade still activated, ready for any trickery. "You fought well, human," Thal rasped, his voice barely audible. "Your kind is not as weak as I thought." Elias crouched beside him, his expression hard but not unkind. "You made a mistake underestimating us. Humanity doesn't fold under pressure. We rise." Thal chuckled weakly, a sound more akin to a rumble. "Perhaps the galaxy should fear you. But know this, victory will not bring peace. Others will come. Stronger than me." Elias leaned closer, his gaze unwavering. "Then we'll fight them too." With a final breath, Thal's body went still, his glowing eyes dimming. Elias stood, the weight of Thal's warning heavy in his mind. A galaxy awaits. The aftermath of the battle spread quickly through the interstellar networks. Footage of Elias's victory, transmitted by human reconnaissance drones, reached the far corners of the galaxy. Species who had dismissed humanity as insignificant now watched with a mixture of awe and trepidation. If one human could defeat a Krenoran general, what could an entire human army accomplish? Back on Earth, the victory was celebrated as a monumental turning point. Cities erupted into cheers as news of Elias's triumph reached them, and the human governments declared a planetary day of remembrance for those who had fallen during the Krenoran attacks. In the Galactic Council chambers, the shockwaves of the battle were felt keenly. Delegates from countless species debated humanity's sudden rise in prominence. Some called for alliances, recognizing humanity's potential as a valuable partner. Others whispered of fear, warning that humanity might one day become a threat to the established order. Reflections and lessons. On a quiet evening aboard the Aegis, the orbital command ship stationed near Keltrax, Elias sat alone in the observation deck, gazing out at the vast expanse of space. The stars seemed closer now, their light a reminder of the endless challenges and opportunities that lay ahead. Reyes entered, carrying 2 cups of coffee. She handed one to Elias before sitting beside him. "Penny for your thoughts?" Elias sipped the coffee, savoring its warmth. "Just thinking about what Thal said. That others will come." Reyes nodded. "He's not wrong. The galaxy's a dangerous place. This fight was just the beginning." Elias looked at her, his expression determined. "Then we'll be ready. Humanity doesn't back down, remember?" Reyes smiled faintly. "Damn right we don't." The galaxy takes notice. In a shadowed corner of the galaxy, a council of powerful alien warlords convened. The news of General Thal's defeat had reached them, and their discussions were heated. "This human, Elias Carter, has shown us that Earth is not to be underestimated," one warlord said, their voice deep and guttural. Another, a sleek and reptilian figure, hissed. "We must ensure humanity's rise is contained. If left unchecked, they will upset the balance of power." The leader of the council, cloaked in darkness, spoke with a voice that sent chills through the room. "Let them rise. Let them think they've won. When the time comes, we will remind them of their place." A new frontier. Back on Keltrax, the human forces began their withdrawal, their mission complete. The battlefield, now littered with the remnants of war, stood as a silent testament to humanity's resilience and ingenuity. As the Aegis prepared to leave orbit, Elias stood on the bridge, watching the planet shrink in the viewport. He felt the weight of what they had accomplished, but also the weight of what was to come. The galaxy was vast, and humanity's journey was just beginning. "We'll need more soldiers like you," Reyes said, standing beside him. Elias smirked. "Good luck finding them. There's only one me." Reyes laughed, shaking her head. "Cocky as ever." "Confident," Elias corrected. "And ready." A final message. As the Aegis jumped to hyperspace, a final message from humanity echoed through the galaxy, transmitted to every major system. "We may be new to the stars, but we're not afraid to stand our ground. If you think humanity is weak, think again. One soldier was enough this time. Don't make us send more." The message sent ripples through the galactic community, leaving species across the stars wondering, what else was humanity capable of? The galaxy had taken notice, and humanity's rise was unstoppable. Elias Carter's victory was only the beginning of a new era, one where Earth would no longer be ignored, underestimated, or threatened without consequence. Humanity was ready for whatever came next.